Hello, this is Joanna. I would like to take a little bit of time to share with you two resources that can help you in understanding what children should know and be able to do, particularly focusing on infants and toddlers. So the first resource that I'm going to share with you is the Interactive Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. In many ways, this is a national early learning standards document. Every state has early learning standards. Each state's standards are organized a little bit differently. Some states have standards that are specific for infants and toddlers, and then a different set of standards for preschool age children. Some states have ones that are birth to 5 or even birth to 6. Some states like Florida actually break it down and have standards specifically as well for 4-year-olds that are in public school programs. So there really is a wide variety, and I encourage you to learn more about your state early learning standards. I am sharing with you these two particular standards, starting with the Head Start, because their websites are very interactive, and so it's really a nice online resource that you can use. Okay, so there's information at the top here, which just gives you some introductory information, an overview of the framework, how it's organized, guiding principles in terms of how we think about children's learning and development. But really the meat of it is here in this image. So this particular framework is broken into 5 central domains. These domains really are pretty standard across states across the country. You know, a lot of times there might be slightly different words. For example, the perceptual, motor, and physical development is often health and physical development. Something that this framework does is that it breaks things out between infants and toddlers and preschool age children. And so we're really going to be focusing on the infants and toddler. So you can actually click on each of these boxes for more information. So if we start, as we think about our content in Unit 1 of Course 2, we do talk a lot about language and early literacy, language and communication. So with this particular framework for infants and toddlers, we're focusing on language and communication. And then within that domain, there are several subdomains. And so those are listed here. So we have attending and understanding, communicating and speaking, vocabulary, and emergent literacy. So let's click on emergent literacy. So when we think about how we support children under the age of 3 and beginning to understand the concept of language and beginning to set the stage so that as they are older, we can begin to really focus on some of those literacy skills. This is where we're focusing on emergent literacy. So then we have several goals listed here, which give you some nice language and some pretty concrete things that you can do with children to support their development around emergent literacy. So for example, if we click on the first one, which child attends to, repeats, and uses some rhymes, phrases, or refrains from stories or songs, then we see the developmental progression. And so this helps you to understand what this looks like at each of the stages of infancy. So when we think about babies and toddlers, children between birth and 3 years, we often think about it in terms of these 3 stages of the young infant, the mobile infant, and the older infant. And you can see that there's some overlap between these 3 stages. And so when we're thinking about emergent literacy, what we really are focusing on with young infants is their ability to listen and attend. With mobile infants, beginning some of the rhyming and repetitive refrains in songs or stories. And then in moving on to what we see here for 16 to 36 months. And then by the time that the child is 3 years old, this is really what we are hoping that the child is knows or is able to do, right? Then if you scroll down, you will see lots of additional resources that you can access. For more information, right? And this can be a little bit overwhelming because there really is a lot here, but it's really good stuff. And so, for example, there's a webinar on babbling babies and early language development. And so you can actually watch this video that's about an hour in length to learn more about language development with babies. And you can also download many of the resources. Okay. Okay, so then the next resource I wanted to share with you is the Georgia Early Learning and Development Standards. Again, I am sharing these two particular frameworks, not because they're better than any others that you might have access to, or in particular the ones that are in your state, but just because they have very interactive websites that are really easy to navigate. So if you go to the homepage here, which is where the link in this message will take you, there is some general information about the standards and how they're organized. There's a lot of different tabs here. We're going to focus on the ones that take us to the actual standards themselves. So the GELDS tab, the second one. And here you can see the 5 domains that are part of the Georgia standards. Now, again, we have very similar domains. They're talking about the same kinds of things, but maybe using slightly different language, right? So again, if we go to communication, language, and literacy, the way that this is organized is that you can then select your focused age group. So I'm going to take us off of the all, right? And then we're just going to focus on birth through 36 months. So again, we looked at emergent literacy with the Head Start standards, early reading, as we think of this, might be somewhat similar, right? So maybe let's look at this standard of the child will acquire meaning from a variety of materials read to him or her. And then you can see what this looks like, what we should be focusing for infants in their first year. And this is really around sharing reading experiences, looking at books when you're holding the baby in your lap, sharing a book, looking at the pictures, allowing the child to turn the pages, all of those kinds of things. Then when we get into the second year of life, between 12 and 24 months, these are some things that you might be focusing on, right? And then the third year of life, from 2 to 3 years, these are some things that you might want to be focusing on. The other thing, which we'll have to look at another standard to see if we can find, they do actually have, let's look under social emotional. They have some video examples. And I should have probably found those before I started this. But let's see here. Here we go. So when you see the little camera icon, there's actually a video that goes along with it. And my computer does not currently have the proper software because it's a new computer. But you should be able to download if you need the software, or you can just click to play. And then you will be able to see an actual video of what that particular skill looks like, right? So if we go back, the standard is develops trust and attachment towards significant adults. And so that video, if you were to play it, would show what that looks like for an infant birth to age 1. Okay, so that is what I was wanting to share with you. Please let me know if you have additional questions. I will be sharing more information in the water cooler throughout this course, so I encourage you to check in regularly. Have a great rest of your day and talk to you soon.